Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel and to this chapter about the P51, which seems to be the model of the corrections and going back and changing things. Landing gear, basically everything, right? So I'm listening to I'm reading your comments and I'm going to follow your recommendations. Nevertheless, all of you know more than I do. So one of the comments from Cliff and Ray is that this motor is too heavy, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in this other motor also from Ray. So I'm going to have to basically cut out this former A, the first former, then figure out a way of putting in this motor at that same distance. So I need to put in probably a block of wood or something there to keep it in place. I notice also that the motor has the holes from this side, so I can't actually put screws from this side unless I take it out. I notice, let's see if it focuses, that there's this little screw here, so hopefully with a small Allen key, if I find it, I can take this off, put the motor mount onto the wood, onto the firewall, and then mount the motor back on, then put this piece back on and glue it back together. Sounds simple enough, but it's probably quite complicated. So first action that I have to do is to cut these stringers. I'm going to try to do it as close as possible to the former so that I can still use them. Again, worst case scenario, I can still put in new ones, but more the side ones are more the important ones, because those are the ones that actually I don't want to change, because these are the ones that are giving the shape and the whole structure to it. So follow me along on this one as we pull a motor and try to put another one on. And a quick update on changing of the motors. So I've pulled off the old motor, well, it's not old, but I don't know how old it is, but it is quite heavy. I pulled it off. I had to cut out this piece with limited success. Some of the pieces are okay, but then at the end a lot of the string is actually broke, so I'm going to have to remove them completely. And I weighed it, and this actually weighs 75 grams. The other motor, this one that I'm also taking apart, is how much? 31 grams. So overall 44 grams less, which is significant, let's admit it. So probably right, Cliff and Ray, it is a big difference in weight. So I'm going to put this one then away, and what I've done so far, as I say, I've taken this off so that I can then mark on the firewall where I need to drill in the holes. I still need to put in some kind of block. I need to measure how much, what is the distance that I need to put in place. I need to clean it up, redo this piece. I was thinking of maybe making a completely new one, which wouldn't be too difficult, but let's see if I can rescue this one. If not, then I will make a new one. And then the next challenge on this one is to actually put the propeller on, because I have, for example, I've got these propellers and they come with these little black washers, so it fits kind of there, but then I have no way of fixing it in place. I then found this other piece, which I suppose these all have names. This one does work. I needed to put a little bit of tape, a little bit of masking tape on the propeller shaft, and this eventually then does kind of squeezing, and I can put it in place. Or another option would be to put on these kind of prop saver pieces that you have the two screws, and then with an O-ring you put them in place. I've got one on the little glider. I might take it down to see if it actually would fit onto it. So I might need to go to the shop and buy some pieces that I don't know how to ask for, so I might need to take the whole motor and show what it is that I need. But anyhow, that's then the progress on that. And as I say, so now drill the holes in there carefully, because if I use the big, like the hand drill, I might break the whole thing, so I might do it manually at the beginning. I'll see how I do it. Start to assemble then the motor back in place, and then basically close it up again. So I'm going to clean up a little bit of the broken stringers that I need to remove anyhow, and then go ahead with the drilling, and I'll let you know how it goes. And here another short update. I've managed to pretty much break every single of the stringers. I was trying to keep them, and one by one they all fell as casualties, even the bottom one. So I just have the main, like the main, what are they called, main stringers. I put in a block which is around 10 millimeter. Let me point at it here. It's a stop on it. It was a kind of a battle to get the screws to go in through here and through the plywood and everything, but after a bit of a battle I did manage to put them in place, and I connected up the motor. It's always then the question if it's connected up well or not. and managed to put in the propeller. I hope it's quite stiff. It doesn't go quite there to the very root of the motor, but I hope it's okay. And now I've connected it up. Let's see if I can put you there. You can see something. So let's test surfaces, rudder, let's see, elevator, ailerons. I think they can be adjusted, but let's see the motor. That's the most important thing. Okay, so that's turning, and I do believe it's turning in the right direction because it's blowing backwards. So good, success so far. Now to putting all the other bits that are missing. I've increased the size of this part so that the motor is almost sticking out a little bit, but I'm okay with it because it's a very flat nosed motor. I don't know if maybe to say it like that. And then to build up all the stringers around that I broke with my clumsy hand. So let me do that. Let me build up the whole nose again, and hopefully then close this off. And the nose section has been rebuilt again. Let's see if I can pick it up without damaging it and show it to you. There we have with other motor. I've widened the hole there and I've tried to center it. I still need to do a bit of sanding here because when I took off the other stringer I broke it off, so I'll sand it down, maybe also paint it down, sand them a bit so that it's nice and flush. I put on also the canopy just because why not, it looks good there. And so that's it actually. The motor has been tested, it seems to be working okay, everything seems to be fitting. Okay, that cable will have to be squeezed in at some point. But I'm not going to leave it here because not it would be a very short video. So what I've started to do is the propeller hub, right? I have to check because I do have some propeller hubs in there, but what I wanted to do is I've cut out one disc, here it is, of ply, 1mm ply, and I hope that when I sand it down to size it kind of fits in there. I'll then have to drill a hole also that goes over the propeller shaft, and then I'm going to see how I build actually the nose cone itself. If I use something that I can buy, or if I make it out of balsa, adapting it to the propeller that I'll be using. So anyhow, what I've done now, just to show you, I've cut out by hand, kind of like with a compass drawn the circle. It's 22mm radius, around 44 across, and I've cut it down with the trick that Cliff told us, which is to use scissors to cut plywood, 1mm plywood. And then what I've done, I've drilled a hole in there just to put it into this shaft. I've put the two discs, they're cutting discs, but I just want to give it a little bit more of strength. And now what I'm going to do on the sanding block, if I fetch it, on the sanding block, slowly start to sand it down to size. I hope, at least that's the theory, right? If it works or not, we shall see. Once I have that, then the idea would be to put the propeller, like put it on, the propeller on, and then see where the blades are going to come out. And then on the opposite, if it's a two-bladed prop like this one, let's say it comes in like this, so then on the opposite probably stick some balsa blocks, and then basically design a propeller hub that I can remove, because the propeller is going to break, right? That's kind of given, so that I can remove the nose cone, the propeller cone, and replace the propeller. So anyhow, that's the theory. I'm not sure if I'll manage or not. Worst case scenario, it'll just be like with the propeller, it'll just sit like that with the propeller and look a little bit awkward, but it might actually fly. So anyhow, let me try to do this, and I'll show you when I have a bit of progress. And finally, after a few weeks away from the workbench, I managed to come back, and working on the nose, I've managed to create a disc. It's taken me quite a long time because I didn't have enough sandpaper. The sandpaper head was very thin, so I had to get some more coarse sandpaper, and I managed, I believe, to do kind of a perfect circle that's going to go on here. I hope it did fit once, so it should fit again. And then the idea is either with this prop holder or with another one. I might need to get another one. This will come on this, and then here I'm going to build the nose cone. So I've got to go a little bit with what's on the plan, but also what is kind of the reality of the propeller holder, because I'm not sure if I follow the plan, if it will be long enough or not. So I might actually just design it myself. For that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put some blocks of balsa together, the thickest I have, which I think is 10 mil. So 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 groups of that. Design the nose cone, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue onto this circle, the plyboard circle, some blocks of wood, and probably build them up in a way that I can then drill into the nose block, putting a screw, and somehow build a nut into this. So it's a little bit of kind of on the fly engineering that has to be done, and I hope it looks okay at the end, and it's not too heavy and it survives a little bit of a nose bump. So let's see how that goes. And continuing with the building of the propeller hub, so I've cut out 5 pieces of wood, 10 millimeters thick, so it's 50 millimeters. It's about like 45 millimeters long, I think, the propeller hub. And what I've done, I've taken the two that are going to go at the tip, and I've already glued them together. So basically the tip is going to be here, and I've got the other 3 that what I've done, I've drilled a hole through them. This is where a drill press would come in handy, because it's hard to make a vertical drill just by holding it with the hand. And then what I plan to do is, I've got this nail, I'm going to kind of jam it in here somehow on all of them. There's a little bit sticking out, so I might need to do a little bit of carving on these other blocks. I put them all together, somehow jamming it in, and then once I have that all together, I'll glue it so it's consistent, in that it's solid, basically, that is like a big block. And then at the end, I haven't done it yet, so then I'm going to put in this nail into the hand drill and tighten it up. And then the idea is that I'll be able to use it a little bit as a lathe. So I might actually do some carving before. It's almost round when it's turning, so before I do that, I'll probably do some hand carving, try to get it close to the shape, let's say, with the hand carving, and only then put it into the hand drill, so that I can kind of sand it down or carve it down to, how do I open this, to the no, I can't undo it now, to the shape. So still a little bit of work to be done there now, with the gluing of all the 5 pieces together and then carving. So let me show you when I have it at least carved down before I put it into the hilly-billy lathe, hand lathe. So just a brief update. I managed to glue everything together, put it in there, and actually before I put it into the hand drill, I carved by hand the corners down. I used a bit of a paper template to get the shape, the generic shape. I drew it onto the wood and then carved down, and I tried to do this kind of lathe approach with a knife. It hasn't worked. I do not have chisels, I think they're called, so now I've started to sand down, and I think it might be working. We're starting to see here the shape of the hub coming along, so a bit of an experiment. I might need to repeat the whole thing, but at least I maybe get in the process kind of fix. So let me go on sanding here. I should look for some kind of mask so as not to breathe in the sawdust, but let's see how it goes. And this is progressing. As you can see, it's almost down to the shape, a little bit fat still maybe, but I think kind of okay, maybe a bit long also, but I think it's going to be okay. I just have some flat spots. Probably when I was carving, I carved a little bit too much. I've also got a flat spot there. I don't know if you can see it actually. So one flat spot here, one flat spot there. So I think I'm going to put in a small patch, maybe a 1 millimeter sheet or something, 1.5, glue it in place, wait for it to dry, and then continue with the sanding. I'm doing it with sandpaper, quite thick sandpaper, coarse sandpaper, and for the dust I've got the vacuum cleaner turned on at the same time and absorbing as much as I can with it, so trying not to breathe it in. But overall I think it's looking not bad. So let me show you then the final product, because then after this what I'm going to have to do is to start to drill holes in here and make way. I'm actually thinking I might not need to patch that up, because I'm going to put a propeller here, right? So then at some point this propeller has to be sitting in here, so I'm going to have to make cuts for the propeller. So let me think about it, how I'm going to do it, but yeah, actually working, the system is working, which is good. And time for an update on the propeller spinner. So basically what I've done, I've cut out the middle bit of the spinner, and here in theory I should be able to put in the propeller, and then it would kind of sitting like this, right? So what I have to figure out, or what I've got a plan for it, but might not be the best as always, is to somehow how to hold this in place. Like the spinner actually does not need to be, doesn't carry any load, it just needs to be there kind of for aerodynamic. The whole load is going to be actually on the axle of the motor, which is here, right? So the idea I came up with is to do a little cutting here, putting a hole there, and then I've created this kind of a sandwich, and in this sandwich I've got, which is 1mm ply and then 2 bits of I think 2.5mm balsa. In the middle piece of balsa there is a little nut embedded. I can show you one of these. It's one of these little nuts that actually threads into this screw. So the plan is I would then glue this here to the back plate of the spinner, glue it in place. I've marked here because I want to put in a small screw somehow to keep it in place, and then slide it in, and I've got to figure out what way up. I think it's this way up. Slide it in, and then I would be able to put in the screw and hopefully screw it into the nut, and it should stay kind of fixed. So there it would be, right? So probably need to sand it down there before I do the gluing, and then the same on the other side, and then this piece would actually be glued into the back plate and thus hold the spinner to the back plate. So that is the plan. Is it over engineered? Probably. I tend to do that. Is it easy? No, it's very clumsy. The way I think things in my mind are very clear, but then when I actually get to do it, my hands don't do what I have to, like cutting the hole for that little hexagon of the nut. I thought it would be easy, but no, how do you get an exact hexagon of that size to fit? That wasn't easy at all. And now hopefully I can get this out. Probably need to sand it down in a way that it actually comes out relatively easy. The challenge of this is of course going to be to do a prop change in a field, kind of, right? Like if I'm flying and then I break the propeller, I need to change the propeller, then it's not going to be so easy. So anyhow, as you see, I'm already struggling with it, so I probably have to take out this piece, sand it down to shape, and then do the same on the opposite side. And once that it's done, then I'll do the test of mounting the whole thing onto the engine shaft and seeing if I can get the propeller in place, and then to figure out what color I have to paint it. I can't remember now, but anyhow, let me update you on that in the next few maybe days. Maybe today, tomorrow I might get to it. And finally, time to close off this chapter. That's been much more of a challenge than I thought it would. But anyhow, I've got everything plugged in, so let me show you how the spinner is. It does vibrate quite a lot, but much less than it did, let's say it like that. If I hold it like this to prevent it from just breaking apart, so there is quite a lot of vibration, but I think it's manageable, let's say it like that. I'm not sure how it will be then once in, just broke the tail part, once in the air, but anyhow, like it's working, which is good. So now let me disconnect everything and show you actually what I've been doing. And I turn this off because as I say, it's been much more complicated than I thought. So I'll show you the structure, and maybe I'll still use a little bit of glue on it to make sure that it's stuck. So there are these two screws on the side that go into that little wooden sandwich with a nut inside, So these come off relatively straightforward, which is good. It wasn't easy, but it worked. And then the whole nose cone comes off, kind of. There it is. And this is relatively light. I think it's like 7 grams or something like that. I had to carve here much more than I initially thought I would need to, but it's okay. So I'll probably have to fix it up a little bit and then paint it. And it's going to be green. I was checking on the picture. It's going to be green. What I need to do is to make sure that I know what side goes where, because it's only one-sided. So I'm going to put here, I've got code A, so just for the records I'm going to put a notch I don't know if I recognize it even if it's painted, so I'll see how I do it. But anyhow, it has to go the proper way on. Now then, the propeller, I was struggling quite a lot to make it fit and not fall off, and I discovered that it's this holder. It was working with one propeller but not another, and that's because the propeller was not thick enough. So when this screw pushes in, it wasn't closing it in enough. I tried it on the other one and I noticed that it closes to the maximum, whereas with this one, without this little black plastic washer, let's say, ring, it wasn't actually doing it. So good, I realized, because I was actually having quite a fight with that. So that's the propeller. And then for the whole back plate, the issue that I had is that the whole back plate was wobbling a lot, so it wasn't fixed. So what I had to do, and I don't know if I want to take it off now or not, what I had to do was I put in, and maybe you can see it if I zoom in there, so I put in another sheet of 1mm ply in there and one on the other side. So with this, the width is like 3mm, and like that it's kind of fixed, much more fixed at least than it was. So I probably don't, I could, it's just like pressure, putting by pressure, but it was quite resistant, so I'm hoping that it does stay there. I'll probably dropping maybe a spot of glue on these, on the sandwiches I'm going to call them, to make sure that they stay where they have to. And then maybe I put the nose cone also again and leave the propeller off. So that is basically then the final part with the nose cone before painting and things like that. As you could see, it does have vibration. I was almost at full throttle, 3/4 throttle, and then I kind of gave up. So let's see if it flies a little bit, then it'll be fine. In any case, I think it looks quite okay. Like if it's painted and things like that, the nose cone looks good, and most of the time it's anyhow going to be at home on the ground, right? So it's not that bad. In any case, thank you everybody very much for watching and for following along on this one, and I'll see you next time.